Hi there, I'm Clarence Waldron. Welcome back to Black Muse. Tonight's guest is the one and only Dr. Bobby Jones. He was the legendary host of Bobby Jones Gospel on BT for 35 years, the longest running cable show in cable history. Along the way, he helped launch the careers of such gospel superstars as Kirk Franklin, Yolanda Adams, and Mary Mary. But listen, I'm going to stop and let Dr. Jones tell his extraordinary story. Hey, Dr.
Thank
Jones,
you. It's good to speak with you again. See that God is still blessing you. You look young and healthy. So here we are.
here we are. So let's start at the very top with the Bobby Jones Gospel was on BT for 35 years, the longest running show in cable history. When you were
Yes.
doing the show, did you have any idea that you were making history, Doctor?
No idea. Wasn't even thinking about that. I was teaching at Tennessee State University when I first got a call from Bob Johnson. My show had been a copy. We had a little show going on in Nashville called Nashville Gospel. So some guys went to New Orleans, Louisiana, where the television people were looking, where they look for different shows. Bob Johnson was down there trying to find something black to put on his black network. And guess who he ran across? A little half-hour show called Nashville Gospel
Hmm.
and Bobby Jones Gospel. So he said, "Hey, Bobby, I see you have a show here, and I'm Bob Johnson. And I'm starting a new network, and I would like to see if you would let me use a copies of your show." And I said, "Yes, of course, Mr. Johnson." And that's how it got started.
Wow. Okay. Now, Kirk Franklin and Mary Mary and Yolanda Adams and so many others sort of got their big break on your show. Let's start just for a moment with Kirk Franklin. What do you remember about the young Kirk Franklin and his performance on your show?
Well, we got to remember that Kirk Franklin, Yolanda Adams, Mary, all of those people came much later than when I started my show. They was like 5 or 6, 7, 8 years later after we got
Mhm.
cable going there. However, when we got to the Kirk Franklin situation, we were in Atlanta, Georgia, at the convention center where I was taping my show there. Well, I had a whole lineup of artists that wanted to be on the show, of course. And here comes a young lady and saying, "Dr. Jones, uh, Kirk Franklin's here. He's supposed to be." I said, "No." She said, "Well, sir, he has driven all this week. Would you please let him out?" I said, "Well, this is not according to what our rules are. We have them as they come in order. Please, Dr. Jones." And he brought these people from from Dallas, I believe it was. "Okay, please let him on the show." Okay. We'll see where we can work. And that's how they got started. I said yes. And
Mm.
you won't believe this. Yesterday, my uh yesterday, my videographer came and said, "I got something new for you." We were putting another show together. We edit on Thursday. And so when he said, I said, "What is it?" He said, I'll let you see it." When he got to the area where we were putting the show with different clips, there was Kirk Franklin's first appearance on my show. I gagged. I
Ah!
sat there. I said, "Oh my God!" And when
Mm.
when I looked at him, I looked at me, and of course I looked totally younger than me.
Yes.
And there was that tape, and so I put him in the show immediately. And but that's how Kirk Franklin got on the show, and I have copies of it, and it's going to be on my show airing in a couple of weeks, and you get to see what Kirk Franklin looked like. You'll have to all you have to do is go to UTV YouTube and Bobby Jones, Dr. Bobby Jones presents, and you can run down and see Kirk Franklin being the first, and he looks so interesting,
Oh, okay. Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
But I let him on, and as you will see when you watch that show, he had gotten to the end of the song, "Go Jesus, Go Jesus, Go," where the audience were just enthusiastic as they could be. And it shows the audience, and they were going with him on that. I said, wait till Clarence called me because I'm going to let him know about my first adventure with Kurt Franklin. Yeah,
Oh, that's fascinating. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Mm. Now, Dr. Jones, you've often been compared to the likes of Ed Sullivan, Don
Mm,
Cornelius, and even
really?
Yeah, and Dick Clark as well. Yeah.
No.
All you guys are star makers, are star makers. How do you feel about that? How
I
does it
feel,
make you feel to be
well,
compared?
I never thought about it until I started hearing that,
Mm.
and I went, how they put him in that category? You know, we're not there. Somebody said, yes, you are.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah,
You
so
are.
yeah, to be mentioned among those three guys, it makes me feel very good that we did that for gospel music, of course, because gospel music had kind of like been shunned by many people because, first of all, it was religious, and unless you were on a religious network, usually didn't have us there. So yeah, I felt good to answer your question. I felt very proud of that.
Now, what makes a gospel star? What makes a real gospel star that you would love to have on your shows? What makes a real gospel star?
Well, what actually made our show so popular was that I did not only have gospel, what we call stars. I had regular gospel singers who would never had been on be on television or anything as exciting that is as that was. So, for example, Kirk Franklin wasn't a gospel star. He was just a little guy who wanted to be on the show. So it was the regular people that really brought the attention of Black folk all over the world. If they can do that, I can do that. And so I always had a good feeling for people who were shunned because I was at the time. I wasn't a gospel singer. I learned about gospel music when I came to Nashville to go to Tennessee State University. Is when I learned more about it and started practicing it as stream. So that's what really made the show popular. It was because people could see people that they could relate to, and Kirk Franklin happened to be one of them as well because they didn't know who he was. But oh my boy, look at him now. And he tells it everywhere. It had been for Bobby Jones, I wouldn't be no Kirk Franklin.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, and Bob Johnson says the same thing. So we feel very proud of that. I just immediately thank you, Jesus. That's what I do because I know it's not about me; it's about the Lord. Yeah.
Hmm. And you received the 2025 Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. What was that experience like, Doctor?
Another one of those. I'm so country that I never can get over the realities of things that can happen to you. So I'm gagging. I'm saying, "Oh my God." They give me that. People were saying, "Well, you deserve it." I said, "Oh, do I?" Okay. I felt that it was a tremendous lift to the industry and to those that had come to serve with me. And most of us were a part of receiving that Lifetime Achievement Award. So when I went to my choir rehearsal after I came back with the award, I took it with me. And I said, now, each one of you, I want you to hold the award and let's take an individual picture of you with the Lifetime Achievement Award. I said, because of you and all of those who came along before you, that's why we have this award. So I just want to share it with you. I know a lot of people who get awards and things. They never recognize the people that helped them to get there. So I wanted the people that sang with me to have a feeling that yes, I'm a part of something great, and that's why I did that.
Beautiful. And but you're not a stranger to the Grammy world because you won a Grammy with Barbara Mandrell for Best Soul Gospel Performance. Tell us about that. That's like 1984, I think it was.
Yes, it was. Well, it was exciting, of course. They had me win a Grammy. I mean, that's an exciting situation. We did have some problems though. there were some black people said that the song that we used was not a gospel song. I'm so glad I'm standing here today. That's the name of the song. And so it was confusing to us because we couldn't think of why they would want to contact us like that. So there was a group called the Winans who was in the same category. And at that particular time, they were hot. I mean, they were really out there. And here comes Bobby Jones with Barbara Mandrell, and we won the award. They did not like that at all. So they put together a team of people to try to get that annulled. So, but it didn't happen. It stayed there. And the strange thing, Clarence, about what's happening now is last year on my BET award, I had an award for my name, Bobby Jones, Inspirational Award. And some lady wanted named Go Flow or Go Gorilla, Go something like that. And I had never heard of it. And when it came time for them to call out who won it, it said Go. I thought they said Gorilla. And I said, who is that? And I couldn't believe it. All the gospel people went crazy because some of them knew who she was.
Okay.
And I didn't. So that was surprising to me. I said, not again.
Oh God.
Not again. Well, thinking of the one when the Winans were rejecting, my work.
Yes.
And then here
Yes.
comes another old person that wins it. But they had Kirk Franklin on her CD, and I think Yolanda Adams was on there, and Kiki Shear, somebody that was well known was on there that were gospel. And the committee, whoever voted for her, voted for. Do you know her name? Is it Go?
I think it's Glorilla.
Glorilla. Yeah,
Glow.
Glorilla.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They must have looked at those names on there, Kirk Franklin, Yolanda Adams, maybe, and made a decision that she should have won that. But the gospel people, and they're not buying that at all, and neither did I, because I didn't name her that. The committee did that. And
Mm-hmm.
this is a secular committee. This is for BET and uh, all of the hip hop people, and that those were the main people that they were looking at. So all I can say is I had nothing to do with that.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
congratulations, Miss Glorilla. But
Yes.
I don't know whether you deserve it or not, but you got it. So that's all that there is to that.
But she got it. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes, you received it.
Yeah. So go back for a minute and tell us about your TV stuff that you're doing now. I know there's gospel concerts that you do as well, but go back
Yes.
to the TV that you're doing now. It's on YouTube, your
Yeah,
show?
you too, and Impact Television. Impact Television is a black Christian television network out of Detroit, Michigan. I'm very delighted to have been working with them now almost 10 years. I was doing Impact TV as well as BET, both of them at the same time. People didn't know it unless they happened to tune in to the network, our Christian network. So Louis Gibbs, one of the people that worked with them, me in the Bahamas at one time, and let me know that he was working with Impact Television, and they would like me to consider having my show on that network. I said, well, it's all black and it's Christian. Of course, I'll inform the BET people that you've asked that you have any kind of competition with what they do. And I did go to BET and ask them and tell them that they wanted to. They said, sure, let them use it. There's no threat to them. So that's how that came about with Impact Television. And then after that, I won in Atlanta, Georgia, called Gospel Music. It was number one on that network till it went out of business. And then I was on another network, and then I was on networks all across America from the United Armed Forces. So Bobby Jones Gospel got worldwide attention immediately. So thank you, Jesus. It still wasn't Bobby Jones. It was the Lord's word. That's who he wanted me to take the word. That's what happened. Class, I'm going to always be humble about that because it's a reality. It wasn't to me. I thank God that he used me as a vehicle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm in Nashville. People didn't recognize it too much. It's your hometown, so they didn't acknowledge it as much as around the world. The rest of the world did, but now he's brought us to another point, and thank God for the Grammy, the Lifetime Achievement Award. Man, do you know how many awards that I have received over these 35 years with BET, and I'm still doing it. So it's been 45 years that I've been out there. Over 1,600.
Whoa, really?
Yes, and my house looks like a museum.
Wow.
Somebody came over here one time and said, "You need to you need to name this something else because look at all of the, I mean, all kind of trophies." During the early part of receiving trophies and things, they used to make those great big trophies, you know. Uh, Now it's a little black.
Right, right,
They don't give those trophies like they did then. So
right.
the front part of my house has those great big trophies and things that people were giving to us at that point. So it's a wonderful feeling. And one of the reasons why I cherish it so is because it's not what I set out to do as my occupation. When I was 15 years old, I left a city called Paris, Tennessee, after graduating from high school at 15. I didn't know what to do, and most of the people in my little class of 32 went to the cities to get jobs and things. They didn't at all know anything about going to college because we couldn't afford it. I had an uncle that lived in Nashville, and I had heard of Tennessee State. And I asked him if I could come and live with him the first year so that I could go to college. And he said yes. So I came to Nashville. I registered at Tennessee State University. Didn't know what my job title was going to be. And I was standing in front of a gentleman, and we were in line as usual to register. And I said, "What's this line for?" He said, "That's for all of us who has a who has a uh, means of trying to decide what they wanted to be." And I said, "Well, what'd you want to be?" He said, "I want to be a teacher." I said, "Oh, okay. I want to be a teacher."
Okay.
You wouldn't believe that's how I became a teacher because I didn't know what else to say because the high school I went to didn't have a pre-prep, they get you ready for college, right? They have
Mm-hmm.
pre-courses and things. We didn't have that in this country town where I was from. That's how I know I can't be a doctor, and I know I can't be a lawyer because we don't have any place for that for black folk. Now, this was really back in 1980. Yeah. So, well, yeah. And so I decided, okay, I'll be a teacher. And so I signed up to be a teacher. So that's what I thought was going to be my lifetime career. Out of the class of 32, only three of us went to college to get a profession. Most of them worked in factories and other kinds of situations.
Mm.
So that's how that came about. So the surprise comes is because I went to a Methodist church during that period. The Black Methodists didn't support gospel music. Believe it.
Ooh.
You could not do any gospel music in those churches. Their music was patterned after white America.
Oh,
You
gosh.
couldn't even have instruments in the church during the 1980s. You couldn't. You have to go back and look at that. No drums, no anything but a piano or an organ or both. Nothing else. So that was the likelihood of me being anything as it related to gospel music. Again, that's how the Spirit of God works. It was supposed to be me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I chose to become a teacher. I went to St. Louis after I finished college when I was 19. I went to St. Louis, Missouri. I got a job there and as an elementary education teacher to teach children how to read and do other things that's related to an education. So I was settled in. I stayed in St. Louis for 7 years, teaching children, of course, in black schools. I never worked with white people. After 7 years, St. Louis was so dangerous. I told my mother, I'm coming back. I'm going to go back to Nashville and see if I can find a job teaching there. So I did. I left St. Louis and came back to Nashville and did get a job in education, teaching, and they had started to integrate the schools here then. All right. Look, the plan still works.
See, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
then I got placed in a white school. And I'm wondering, how did this happen? you know, but I was a good teacher. I mean, really, I was a good teacher and I knew
I'm sure
it.
you were. I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. Yes, yes, yeah.
So I started teaching in this elementary school called Una Elementary. And I kind of shined because there's a black man teaching in a white school. So they heard about me in another section of Nashville, and they wanted me to come over to that school and teach in that school. Ed Elementary was the name of the school. So I said, okay. They wanted me to become the director of education for that school. I said, oh, okay. So I came back. When I went back to that, when I started working at that school, it became so popular that I could teach children how to read phonetically because most black kids were taught to read with say. Here's the word, say it, and remember it. But with phonetics, of course, you had to get the pronunciation of the sounds. In about a half of a year, a little longer, here comes a guy from McGraw-Hill Publishers. He wanted to exploit his material in these black schools so they could learn how to read phonetically as well. And little did I know, he said, I heard about you, and we want you to consider if you would become a consultant with our company. I said, your company? He said, yes. I said, what is it? He said, McGraw-Hill. McGraw-Hill? They make books for colleges. And you do educational material for children? Yes. And we'd like for you to become, so you could travel to the schools around America and abroad and be our consultant. Well said. Jesus, what are you getting me into?
Here we are. Yes.
I became a consultant for McGraw-Hill Publishing, and I worked all around the country, traveling into those schools where children were learning how to read through the phonetic approach. Still, gospel was not on my plate. I'm still working toward being an educator.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I did that. I worked with them for about 4 or 5 years. And after that, the news spread that I worked phonetic approach and I could help teach grown men and women. Here comes the next step. I got a job. Where did the job take me? Tennessee State University to teach courses in thought processing. How do you analyze and process your thinking so that you can understand what it is you're reading?
Yes.
And I took the job at Tennessee State University teaching thought processing. Here we are. So that's step by step in my continuation to it. So while teaching at Tennessee State University, they knew of my work with McGraw-Hill. They wanted to start an organization called Black Expo. Black Expo was supposed to enlighten the people in our community as the contributions that Blacks have made throughout the world and especially in the Nashville area. So here comes the committee and asked if I would be the president of this organization called Black Expo. You've heard of Black Expo?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, it's still running. Yeah.
Yes.
And I took the job and I was able to use skills that I had learned in my teaching process to handle that job well. And it became successful. During that process, I heard choirs sing and I started working in a church with choirs. And I thought, this is wonderful music. But our churches don't accept it if you're not Methodist. If you were Methodist, you wouldn't accept it. So I thought, well, I like this. I'm going to ask television. Oh, let me see. Channel 4. What are they? NBC. Oh, affirmative action is here. They're supposed to have not only white shows, they should have black shows.
Yes.
Oh, but it's gospel. I'm not sure they would want to do that, but I'm going to check. Here I go to channel 4.
Ooh,
I don't think I've ever told this story like this. So
no,
you have
I,
premium. So I went and took some other people with me. We know that we don't have black programming here, so we have a gospel show that we'd like for you to consider become a part of your watching viewing on Sundays. They said, well, let us see it. And my English was proper.
yes, yes, yes.
But in most black shows, when you see black athletes and things on their language was not proper English. So they said the music was organized. They said,
Hmm.
we'll consider it. And we walked out of there with a 30-minute show called Nashville. And I became the host of this.
Wow.
And selected people from around the community, the choirs and the soloists who could sing the music. And it immediately became their number one show.
Okay, now.
Black gospel music on a Sunday morning at 8 o'clock.
Wow.
So that's how I got to Bob Johnson.
Hmm.
While I was doing the show in Nashville called Nashville Gospel, we decided to break. Those of us who were the people who was the hosts or whatever. And so I had to go in another direction. I said, well, we do that. I'm going to call my section Bobby Jones Gospel. If the rest of the people, like Johnny Carson and all of them, have net shows named for them,
Hmm.
why
Hmm.
don't I call it Bobby Jones?
Okay, okay. I love it. I love it. Yes, yes.
So, Clarence, that's how that name even came about. And because I split from the other people that were doing the show with me and called it Bobby. And so then from there, that's when the show was taken to New Orleans for Bob Johnson to see Bobby Jones. And there it is.
Hmm.
There it all is from then to now. And I'm still doing it.
And you're still doing
Bobby
it.
Jones
You're
presents.
still doing it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now go back because you have your doctorate. Talk about that. Talk about.
Well, while teaching at Tennessee State University, they didn't put you on various committees in situations unless you had a doctorate degree. And people around me were studying to become one. I said, I think I ought to be able to study and, do that. So I'm going to go to Vanderbilt, George Peabody School for Teachers, and work on me a doctorate. I did. And in 3 years, I had my PhD.
Ooh, y'all, look
It's
at you.
even funny to me, Chris. It's even funny to me as to how it happened. That's why I did it, because I didn't want the people around me who had doctorate degrees feel so elevated. And me with my master's, I had a master's that I had gotten at Tennessee State during the whole process of educating myself. And so I did. And the doctorate was in education, of course. And here we are with Dr. Bobby Jones.
Got
So
it.
after that, here comes Payne Theological Seminary. Uh, got a doctorate there. And God just continued to bless, put together groups. And that's how I won the Grammy. I put together a group of singers, did a CD. I was recording in Nashville in a studio, and down the hall from me, a young white lady was recording as well. Her name was Barbara Mandrell. She heard us singing. She ran up there. She said, "Who is this?" This is Bobby Jones and New Life. They sing gospel? They said, yes. Can I meet him? They said, yeah, we'll go get him.
Hmm.
Came, knocked on Dr. Bobby Jones. Bobby Mandrell would like to say hello to you. I said, Bobby Mandrell? Oh, that's a star. You know, she had a #1 show on NBC, Bobby Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters, right?
Yes, yes.
So I said, Miss Mandrell, Bobby Jones, very polite. She said, oh, I love what you're doing. I said, really? She said, yeah. She said, would you travel with me? I said, with gospel? She said, I love gospel. She knew Andre Crouch.
Hmm.
He was the only one that she knew at that time. See, we weren't popular then. I said, I'll consider it. I'll see if I can get my group together and we can we'll do some work with you. For 8 years,
8 years?
we traveled with Baba Mandrell.
Wow.
Was her opening act in Las Vegas. My name on the billboard in Las Vegas was Bobby Jones and New Life, Barbara Mandrell.
Wow. Amazing.
Amazing, man.
So let's
So
go back.
you got to let somebody see this show because this is the first time I've really told it in this sequence. So
Yes.
that's why the first time it didn't work. This time it is because I had to do it like this again. God,
God has a way of working things out. Yes,
yeah,
he does.
yeah.
So now, Dr. Jones, who inspired you? I mean, who told you to get as much education as possible? Who just inspired you or helped you get your foundation together?
Here comes the other part.
Come on now.
While teaching at Tennessee State University in the Department of Education, there was a young lady who was known all over the world for her writing. I know why the cage bird sings.
Ah,
Who appears in that department to do a speech? Where was Bobby Jones? Sitting on the front row, of course. It was
of
my
course.
department.
Of course.
Looked down and she saw me, didn't know who I was, had no idea. I was just interesting to her. She said, who is that? I said, oh, this is Bobby Jones. He teaches here. Oh, okay. Would you invite him to come to my suite after we finish? I'd like to talk to him. I said, what? I know why the cage bird sings. What's her name?
Maya Angelou.
Dr.
Yes.
Maya
Oh,
Angelou.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And she, on the way to the, after we talked. And so she said, would you take me to the airport in the morning? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, what do you do other than teach? I said, well, I have a little TV show and we sing gospel. You sing gospel? I said, yes, ma'am. I said, I have an album out. And she said, bring it in the morning when you take me to the airport. I brought my album at the time and gave it to her. Thank you, she said. In 3 weeks, I get a call from Los Angeles. It's Maya. Maya? Yes, Maya Angelou. I said, oh, Maya Angelou. This is Bobby Jones. She said, I know who it is. I want to invite you to come to Los Angeles and sing with my company. And she was with a movie division. Oh, what was that? It was a big movie company. I can't think of the name of the company right now. And because I'm relenting and getting teary, because I'm just thinking about how did this really work like that? And
Mm.
Clarence Waldron, of all people, is getting the story in sequence. What is this? Anyway, Warner Brothers Studios. We went. I got a group of my singers together. We took a bus, and to California we went to sing for Maya Angelou. And that was the beginning of an extension of my knowledge
Mm.
because she would sit us down on the floor in front of her and tell us about life. She was a wonderful influence. And for 25 years, I sat at Dr. Maya Angelou's turkey dinner.
Yes, indeed.
I had, and you were a part of it.
I, I remember.
My
Yeah, I
God,
was
this is
there.
getting too good. This is
Yeah,
getting too good.
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Hmm.
you witnessed
She
it.
was amazing. She was amazing. You would always walk away from her knowing so much you knew before. You felt more intelligent. You felt more confident. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my God. Now here I am talking to somebody who didn't have to wonder if I was telling the truth.
I knew you were telling the truth.
Oh God.
Yes.
And it happened to be you.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
The other person was just as anomalous as the Barbara Mandrell situation.
Mm.
While I was doing the gospel show, I had a call one day from a gentleman that was so distant to what I do. I picked up the phone. Hello? Hello? This is Louis Farrakhan. I'd like to speak to Bobby Jones. I said, who? Louis Farrakhan. I said, yes, this is Bobby Jones. He said, well, I'm calling you because I would like to make an appearance on your show, on your gospel show. And I thought, all that I have heard about them, my thoughts were about this man, he's Muslim. He's not gospel. I can't do that. These
Right.
are my thoughts.
Right. Right.
And I said, oh, sir, thank you for asking. I said, but I would have to call the owner of the network and see if that's okay. You know, he's over what I do on the network. He said, well, call him. So I did. I called Bob Johnson. I said, Bob Johnson, I had a call from Louis Farrakhan, Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he wants to be on my show. Bob Johnson said, hell no. I said, sir? He said, no, he's Muslim. I said, yes, I do know that. I said, okay, I'll tell him what you said. So I called back Mr. Farrakhan and I said, Bob Johnson said, no. He said, oh, he did? I said, yes. I said, so I'm so very sorry, sir. I said, okay, I'll talk to you later. Next 2 days, I'm in New Orleans at the James Cleveland Convention, gospel music, for trying to, you know, increase my knowledge to the gospel music. So Bob Johnson said, Bobby, I said, yes, sir. You can have Louis Farrakhan on your show. I said, Mr. Johnson, now this is not, I'm not asking you to do this. You know, this has to be your decision. So I don't want you to know, no, it's okay. And I called Louis Farrakhan, Minister Farrakhan, and said, Bob Johnson. I said, so let's make arrangements. And so I'm thinking to myself, at the same time, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to be awful. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to promote my show. To
Mm.
have the Muslim owner along with the Christian still, you know. So I said, oh, this might work good. But yet it may turn some of my Christian people away. Bob Johnson, Louis Farrakhan came with his troop. They lined up in front of all the way down to the street with Muslims, checking everybody who was coming to my show that night.
Mm.
Oh, that scared me. These are white people, and they don't like They don't like Muslims, I'm thinking. But they did. So we talked, and he was going to play on his violin. He is a consummate violinist. I mean, perfection. He did Amazing Grace on the violin, and I sang it. It was a wonderful situation. We became friends. Wherever he would go and I was available, I would be. Wherever I would go and he was available, he would be.
There it
And the
is.
Muslim people couldn't understand it. Why are you so? He said, well, Bobby Jones is, my friend. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and unto this day, we still are. So those two were outstanding in my life. I learned a lot from Minister Farrakhan because his view of life and our situation in America was not what I was accustomed to listening to. And so I was able to accept his point of view, not to change. And there's a section on my show where we talked about it, and you can find it. It's he said some question, and I said, I'm Christian. He said, and I'm Muslim. I said, I love Jesus. He said, and I love Jesus. Here we
Here we
go,
go. Here we
Clarence.
go.
That's the other
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we did. So we embraced. So there was the Muslim and the Christian, me and Louis Farrakhan. So wherever we would go, whenever we were doing something, I would be there or he would be. So
Wow.
we were enlightened.
Yeah. 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 Before we go, I've got to ask you a question because you shared so much more today than before. How would you like to be remembered, Dr. Jones?
Because I have professed Christianity as my means of a life after this one, I would like for people to know who I really am or was. I'm a very honest person. I love people. What I do it because I'm directed from my high spirit. And I'd like for them to know that that's who I am. And that's what I was sent here to do. So know that Bobby Jones is a follower of Jesus Christ. And that's the most important thing that I would want them to know. Not my talent, that's not necessary, but I'm a realist. This is me and nobody else. I love him, Lord.
That is beautiful. That says it all. That says everything. Anything else you want to share what I got you here before we close?
Well, I'm getting another award.
Are you
Thanks.
really?
But yeah, Hezekiah Walker has a group of choirs that he usually features at the Stella Awards each year. So during the Stella Award week, which is next week in Nashville, I'm getting 3 more awards. Uh, he's giving me a Lifetime Achievement Award and so on. So here it is again.
Here we are
So
again.
yeah. So, it's on my mind as to whether or not I want to continue to do this much longer. I'll let the Lord guide me as to what I need to do. I'll be 87 years old, September the 18th. And I'll do this as long as I'm able and can, and situations are where that I can do it. But I'll know when it's time to stop. The Lord will let me know because I'm guided by Him. So I have no fear.
like that. You have no fear. All right. All right. Before we close, though, and thank you very much for your time. Before we close, I want to give a quick little shout out. Thank you to Howard Sandifer and his wife, Darlene Sandifer. They are the founders of the Chicago West Community Music Center, a great school here in Chicago on the West Side. And this whole video podcast was their idea. They said, let's have lively conversations with legends like Dr. Jones. So here we are. We just did that. And also, I just want to say to the viewers out there, we must increase our numbers. So do me a favor, please click like and subscribe. Please
Yeah.
click like and subscribe, and I'll see
Hmm.
you next week. Thank
How
you.
about